was at work, my wife used to work as a call girl. We're an ordinary couple. I'm 31 and she's 29 years old. I work a lot, sometimes 12 to 13 hours up to 6 days a week. I dedicate myself to work to provide for my wife so she can stay home like she wanted to. She knows that my profession involves a busy schedule. In some cases, I go to work as a normal day, starting at 6 o'clock a.m. After a busy day at work, I arrived home and, as usual, said hello to my wife. We talked for a while, after which I walked down the hall to the bathroom. There I noticed a business card lying on the sink, which struck me as odd. I thought about it for a moment, trying to remember if I had taken anything out of my wallet, but I couldn't remember the business card. While I was washing my hands, I called out to my wife and asked about the card. She replied that she didn't know where it came from. She then inquired about the contents of the business card. I said it belonged to a realtor. She then reminded me of our previous housing searchers. Although I initially treated it as forgetfulness, it made me wonder why it showed up a year later. Nevertheless, the evening passed quietly. My wife and I had dinner, watched a little TV, and eventually went to bed. The next day, I go to work again. Having worked a full shift, I finished work at 18:30 and went home by car. As I reached my street, my attention was caught by a car pulling away from my driveway. I wondered who it was that had arrived. The tinted windows made it impossible to see who was in the car. I parked in the driveway, entered the house, and said hello to my wife. I inquired about the guest. In a casual tone, she replied, "Oh, that was a representative from Mary Kay." I asked, "Are they still doing Mary Kay?" The wife confirmed by nodding and saying yes. I said good. However, in the back of my mind, I don't see a business card for this Mary Kay representative. Normally, when people of this nature come to your home, they leave their business card. I decided not to pursue the matter further or ask my wife for details. We had dinner as usual, watched a movie, and went to bed. The next day, I go to work again at 6 o'clock a.m., finish around 6:45 p.m., and then go home. As I was approaching my street, my attention was caught by a van pulling away from our driveway. Apparently, the vehicle was tied up for air conditioning repair. I had a flicker of a thought. Wasn't there a problem with the air conditioner? I parked in the driveway, walked into the house, and asked my wife if the ache was okay. She replied, "Don't worry about it. We'll just have someone look at it because the house was a little warm last night." I found it unusual because my wife hadn't mentioned any issues with the ESCE or that she had called for repairs. As this sequence of events unfolded, a sense of suspicion began to creep in. The following day, when I had some time off, I decided not to disclose this to my wife. However, my plan was to pretend I was driving to work, so the next morning, I woke up as usual. I drove to my place of work, parked my car, and sat inside for about an hour before getting out of the car. I went to the nearest car rental agency across the street from my place of work and arranged for a rental car. After waiting for about another hour or so, I headed back home. This time, however, I decided not to park in the driveway. I was overcome with an anxious feeling. I couldn't quite shake off the anxiety I felt about my wife's actions. It seemed strange to me that two different people had entered our house, and she had not warned me in advance. Intending to avoid baseless accusations, I tried to assess the situation. Returning home, I reached my street and chose a parking spot that had a good view. Exhale. I watched patiently, trying not to jump to conclusions. While I waited, many cars passed me, but all of them passed my house approximately 10 minutes later. My attention was drawn to a modern BMW that pulled up into my driveway. Similar to previous instances, the windows were tinted, obscuring the identity of the occupant. My heart quickened its pace as the car door swung open. A rush of emotions washed over me. For standing there was a man dressed in a suit, clutching a bouquet of roses. Realizing that I needed a few minutes to recover, I waited for a while before pulling over behind the guy's car. Stealthily getting out of the rental car, I headed towards the back door of the house. I walked up to the back door. Next to it was a utility closet. Opening the closet door, I pulled out the baseball bat stored in it. I had no intention of offending anyone, but the situation of a man walking into my house with a bouquet of roses took me by surprise. At 180 centimeters tall and 260 pounds, I'm not exactly small. Carefully, I peeked through the window, but saw neither my wife nor the man. Deciding to proceed cautiously, I took off my shoes. I quietly unlocked the back door and closed it. With no upper floor, our dwelling is a one-story building, often characterized as a ranch-style home. stepping carefully. I circled the room until I reached my bedroom, but it appeared empty. Continuing on, I made my way to the next bedroom, and there I found her with this guy, which overwhelms me. I scream, "What do you think you're doing?" My wife and the man she's with jump up on the bed, resembling teenagers caught red-handed by their parents while watching adult movies. His wife, covering herself with a sheet, asks, "What the hell are you doing here?" I reply, "I live here." I look at the guy and ask, "And why the hell is he here?" She didn't answer. The man in front of me is petrified, fear in his eyes. I grab the bat to make sure he doesn't make any unnecessary movements. Reread, and I asked him why on earth he was with my wife. His response came in the form of a pleading, "Please don't hurt me." First annoyed. I insisted, "Just answer the damn question." Then, uncertainly, he reached into his pants and pulled a business card from his pocket. He holds it out and mutters, "That's why I'm here." I walk over and take the business card from his hands, at which point a wave of shock hits me. The business card features a picture of my wife. Her nude figure is on the business card with a web address. I look up at her in shock and bewilderment and exclaim, "What the hell?" She meets my gaze, confusion on her face, and I demand an explanation. "What the hell?" I ask with a sigh. She confesses, "Before I met you, I was working as a call girl." "I'm sorry." "Incredibly." I asked, "How long have you been deceiving me?" Tears are streaming down her face, covered by her palms. "Since we got married?" Stunned at her confession. "What?" I utter, trying to comprehend what she said. "We've been married for 3 years." Her words came crashing down on me, causing me to take an involuntary step back. For a moment, I lost my balance. Its medical powers actually, a deep shock swept over me, and I was speechless for a moment. I stood silent, trying to realize the enormity of the situation. I finally turned and walked out of the house, walking through the front door to where the rental car was parked. After moving the car, I went back into the house and headed for the bedroom. To my amazement, they were still frozen in place. On leaving them in place, I noticed that the guy had managed to put his pants on in the meantime. A storm of emotions inside me urged me to beat him up, but I couldn't do it. With bat in hand, I head in his direction and tell him to get out. As he walks away, I turn to my wife. "Why? Why have you betrayed me like this? And why are you hiding it?" She meets my gaze, regret in her eyes, and replies, "You wouldn't have married me if you knew about my call girl past." I shake my head, trying to deal with the gravity of her revelation. Enter. "But why do it in our own home?" Usually ask. She lowers her gaze, and a heavy silence hangs between us. What I have just discovered has put me in a state of shock. The realization of how many men she slept with right under my nose while we were married and even when we were dating was overwhelming. "But you're going to have to find another place to live," I told her. In response, she says she has no intention of leaving. I raise the bat again, pointing it at her, and in a firm voice I say, "You have to leave before I do something I'll regret later." And she retreats to our bedroom where she starts packing. I hear the sound of her phone. She is dialing her sister's number, urgently asking her to come and get her. The tense atmosphere hangs in the air as she waits for her sister to arrive. She makes attempts to engage me in conversation, but I reply, "I don't have anything to say. Just go away." Soon there's a knock on the door. Her sister has arrived. I open and meet her sister's gaze, which falls on the bat in my hand. The concern in her eyes, she greets me. Concern in her voice, "Is everything all right?" I reply, "Ask your sister about that." Hurt, a look of bewilderment runs across her face, and she sees my wife sitting on the couch. She asks my wife what happened. Getting no answer, she asks again, "Hey, what's going on? Why is Mark holding a bat?" Finally, my wife musters up the courage to tell my sister the truth. She confessed to her about her call girl past and her infidelity. Shifting her gaze to me, she utters, "I can't believe it." It's in response. I pull her sister's business card from my pocket and hold it out to her. She then looks at my wife and decisively states, "We need to talk. Let's go." With those words, my wife and her sister leave. I am left with a sense of deep hurt, for seeing a whirlwind of thoughts rush through my head. How could I have overlooked all of this? She had been having an affair for over 3 years. In the evening, my wife calls me. I pick up the phone and ask, "What do you need?" She answers, remorse in her voice. "I'm sorry." I say that words don't matter in the face of such a deep betrayal. After what you've done, there's no room for sorry. I don't want to hear it. I snap, my patience wearing thin. As, "You wasted a phone call." I hung up. The shock of what happened still hasn't worn off, and I don't know what to do next. Obviously, I need legal help, a calm outside perspective. I realize that I have to think rationally in this situation. And one thing is for sure, if she hadn't left, I don't know what I could have done. Thank you for listening to this story to the end. And if you like it, please support us with a like as well as subscribe to our channel.